Aloha. Welcome back to season 2 of the Aravinda Show, focused on conscious entrepreneurs. With me, Andrew Crusoe, your host. So, for today's episode, I got to sit down with Drew Morgan, creator of HunnyBee, a rather beautiful app that brings together vegetarians and vegans. And it's currently the #1 vegan dating app on the App Store. We had so much fun with this interview. I learned a lot, and I think you're going to love it. Enjoy. Thanks for taking some time and joining me for an interview today, Drew.
Thank you, Andrew.
It sounds like it's pretty rainy there right now.
Yes, we have the full Hilo, Hawaii downpour going on the last couple of days.
It's a good time to get interviews done, right?
Very good time. Yeah, there's nothing to do.
I've kind of found out about HunnyBee through sort of the organic network that we all live in now. And I just thought that I would bring you in and talk to you about what it's like to create something and grow a business that is actually helping the world and not just focused on profits. I'd love to just talk to you about your journey and how you got to where you are and what your goals are. And where I like to start with people is what brought you to Hawaii?
Basically, just I wanted to be around more vegan friends and community.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Southern California, Orange County to be specific. So it sounds kind of crazy to move away from there because that's kind of a hotbed, being that it's close to LA and there's a lot of vegans there and restaurants and stuff like that. But I wanted to experience like a bigger diversity of food, fresher fruits and stuff like that. Obviously, a lot of vegans like sustain on bananas and stuff, so it doesn't get better than Hawaiian bananas that are locally grown.
Absolutely.
And and it just I was at a point in my life where I was just laid off from my corporate job, and I kind of saw like an amazing adventure and opportunity in front of me, and I just couldn't resist jumping in and kind of joining the culture that's already being formed and shown often on YouTube and social media and stuff like that. I wanted to dive right in and see what it's all about.
So you saw it as really, and I see that in a totally different way now. And I lived there for a year and a half, and then I moved
Mm.
away, and now I'm planning on going back. It's very obvious to me now how how incredibly conscious people are about what they eat and how they affect the world and affect the land that they live on. And
Yeah.
so you saw that as, wow, this is such a great place to. It was mostly the vegan culture there that was a big draw for you.
Yeah, definitely. I kind of had the assumption that I knew that a lot of people were growing their food here, and I wanted to experience the best that a fresh, plant grown food could offer me. And I just wanted to be around that more.
It's definitely a great place to be, like, surrounded by fruit. I mean, as you know, there's so much fruit there that you just don't see anywhere else.
Yeah.
Things you haven't even heard of before you. Now, how long have you been on Big Island now, if I can ask?
Big Island, I've been here since October of 2016. So about 14, 15 months now. And I came to visit it a few months before that for a retreat.
Can I ask what kind of retreat?
Yeah, it was just sort of like a self-love wellness retreat hosted by Evan Rock. A lot of people know who that guy is. He's definitely
Yeah, I
around
know
self.
that guy. I know of
So
him.
yeah, so he was hosting retreats at the time, week-long retreats, inviting people out to stay on his land. You could either tent camp or stay in a little dorm that he has prepared, and they basically cooked for us. They took us around to all the sites around the island. We did a bunch of activities. We did a lot of inner soul searching type of stuff, and we did a lot of sightseeing and touristy stuff. We would go to the beach and caves and all this cool stuff, and I just learned so much about myself and about other new friends, and just made friends really quickly, and saw it as a place that I wanted to come back to quickly and visit again.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah, I'm familiar with Evan and his now wife, I think, Megan's work through Instagram. Actually, is where I see a lot of their stuff. And yeah, I didn't realize that they were doing that. They'd done that even in 2016. We're doing these week-long things. So that sounds like it was really inspirational to you to be like, this is such a different. What was that like comparing that? I was actually born in California, so
Mm.
I've lived there for kind of off and on. What was that contrast like for you to be like, well, there's good things about the culture in SoCal, right? But
Yeah, definitely.
it's so different on Hawaii.
It's so different. I tell this to people all the time. You know, a lot of the friends are coming from, not to hate on, I won't name anywhere specific, but they come from places that are in the mainland US that are not seen as like the cool hip places to be, or, you know, they don't have good weather year round. So
Sure.
coming from Southern California, it does have those things. It's got, you know, beautiful weather. It's got nice sights to see. It is a travel destination for a lot of people. It's got beautiful people. It's got a lot to offer too,
Oh,
but
totally.
it is definitely a big contrast moving to the Big Island because it's a much slower pace. You've got jungle and rain that I've never seen before in my life. And it's just a culture that's very different. And I wanted to take a step back from the fast paced hustle and bustle of the California lifestyle where, you know, if you don't have
Yeah.
a nice Mercedes and a big house, not that those things, there's anything wrong with those things, but I wanted to take a step back to reorganize and recalibrate my own life and my own goals and move towards something else that I had, you know, I was in the process of creating, which, you know, was ultimately my business that we're talking about today.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, you and the business and every where all this is going, I really feel that the Big Island is it's funny because it's this mixture of what feels like the Wild West. You know,
Mm-hmm.
in a way, it's sort of the last Wild West, right? You keep going west and you're in Japan, and then it's kind of the east. It's like there's like Hawaii is so different, but
You're
in a way,
right.
I think it feels very. It sounds kind of funny to say because there's parts of Hawaii that feel very rural and isolated, but in a lot of ways, Hawaii feels kind of futuristic in a
Mm.
way because of how conscious people are about where their utilities are coming from, for one thing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so much of the power is generated on people's houses through solar panels, and they're doing rain catchment, and they're all shooting UV through their water so they can drink rainwater. And it's so much more efficient in a lot of
Mm-hmm.
ways than doing centralized utilities. It feels very forward looking to me.
It's kind of like Avatar, the movie. Like you have
Great
the
movie.
machines and you have the nature together, and that's kind of how a lot of Hawaii is becoming. You know, even the super city like areas on Oahu, you know, with Honolulu, the big tourist areas,
Yeah.
it's still very much nature all around you, even deep into the city. So, and yeah, like you said, the average person here is very aware of where the energy comes from, recycling, things like that. I've seen, you know, even the kind of the punk kids are still more aware than the punk kid on the mainland about like them littering on the ground. Just you just don't really see it. Everybody has a lot more respect for the land.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well said. Well said. Um, what was it like the first time you landed on Hawaii? I mean, what hit you? What hit you? It definitely feels different. The air is so clean. What was that like for you?
I landed with one of the girls who flew in for the same retreat that I was going to, and so we were both experiencing this together. And we're both taken back at how wet the air felt,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
also the Hilo airport's like this little tiny airport with no windows around the main waiting areas, so it's
Oh
actually like an
yeah.
indoor outdoor airport,
Right.
which I've never seen before. And then you go down the escalators to go get your bags, and it's you all you hear is coqui frogs. So
Oh, so it was night or
yeah, it was
dusk.
nighttime. Yep,
So you
and you
landed
just
in
feel it.
Hilo and not Kona.
Correct. Yeah, Hilo. I've never flown. Actually, no, I have flown out of Kona, but that was to Oahu.
Probably yeah, another island. Oh,
Hmm.
I love Hilo Airport too, but if you ever have a chance, landing in Kona Airport is a pretty special experience because you're approaching and you just see when I was landing, I'm just like it's I don't see any green. You just see this
Yeah,
field of lava, and it's a single landing strip.
yeah, it's a cool airport.
It's so tiny and so unique, and it's just open to the air. And Hilo's pretty much like that too, but Hilo's got a little bit more going on.
It's a lot sketchier because you're landing usually at nighttime if you're coming from the mainland, and it's going to be so rainy. So you're just hoping that everything goes well.
That's true. Yeah, I don't think I've ever landed in. No, I did land in Hilo one time. So you're vegan now. How long have you been vegan, and how long were you vegan before you were going? Well, there's this place that's sort of, for the lack of a better term, like the mecca of veganism in some way. There's a few meccas, right? But I do
Yep.
feel that the Big Island is a wonderful hotspot for people who want to follow a plant-based diet and be really, really deliberate about it and have a lot of positive social support. Like, as you know, the social support is so huge. Um,
Agreed.
when you're changing your lifestyle. I mean, I'm guessing you didn't grow up in a vegan household since so few people do, or maybe you did.
No, definitely not. My family was it's most of my family is Cuban, so I grew up around the pork eating and all the
Mm.
heavy oils and all that stuff. The health culture. I've talked to my grandparents about it a lot before. Actually, it was a fashion statement in old days of Cuba to be actually overweight. So
Ah.
people were actually injecting themselves back then with insulin to actually gain weight so that they could appear that they had more wealth and more health because that was seen as the attractive thing and the healthy thing to be overweight because it was like, you know, you had the abundance basically to be um to be fat. And
Wow.
so that's the culture that I grew up in. Almost all of my family, besides my direct parents, are overweight, and that's it is what it is. That's their choice, and but definitely none of them are vegan. And I was always kind of the skinny one anyway. But
Yeah, me too.
yeah, I just wanted to move towards the healthy direction, and I definitely didn't. I pretty much went from like bodybuilder meat eating diet to vegan overnight, pretty much.
Really? You
Yeah.
didn't even have a I had a period of a long time where I was vegetarian and really like I was basically vegetarian for 10 years, and it's only been in the last year that I've been like 95 to 100% vegan. Um and it's been a very so I it's interesting to hear you going really just 180, cutting
Hmm.
everything out, cutting. I mean, what was it like to cut cheese out? That was my that was my stumbling block, even though I'm sensitive to lactose.
Yeah.
What was that like? I mean, what did you miss the most, I guess is a good question.
Well, I guess I was so ready to make the switch. It's kind of like a cigarette smoker that's just finally ready to make the switch. Like they're almost like disgusted with the habit and they're just
Mm.
ready to make the switch, but they're kind of like helpless. But then when they finally do, it's a complete 180 cold turkey. That was kind of my situation because I had actually gotten sick the same year that I went vegan. The year that I turned 28 years old,
Mm.
I got mononucleosis right around the time of my birthday,
Ooh.
which is, you know, there's different names for it all over the world, but it's the kissing disease. You know, you're sick for a whole month, bedridden pretty much.
Yeah.
And I felt what it was like to be really, really sick late into my 20s. And up
Yeah.
until that point, I had been relying on my youth and my 20s to kind of like get me out of whatever situation. I was always drinking and partying. I was eating really unhealthy foods like all the meat based eggs every day, cheese,
Mm.
of
Mm.
course, and
Bacon.
bacon, yeah, everything. I didn't care because I always had the problem of trying to gain weight. So it wasn't a thing about weight for me or maintaining my
Uh,
weight. I was always trying to get bigger and stronger and just eat whatever I could to do that.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, so it wasn't like I missed too much because I was already feeling so sick. And actually the same year too, I witnessed my grandfather have a heart attack and it ultimately pass away.
Oh
So
no.
it was like this whole turning point, and then I got sick myself, and I was just like, you know what, these two incidences in the same year, I had to
Mm-hmm.
figure out another way. And then I started hearing about all this vegan stuff, and of course, when you're starting to research veganism on YouTube or whatever, there's like it's like the silver bullet for everything in your life, you know. So I got into it. I was really intrigued by it, and then I'm just kind of one of those people where when I decide to try something, I go all in for at least a
Mm.
certain period of time,
Mm-hmm.
and
Like a 30-day trial. I find those work pretty well.
yep, I think I agreed to do like a 3 month or a 6 month trial, and then as soon as those months came up, it was clear for me that I was feeling a lot better, and there was no way I was going to go
Mm.
back. At least at that point.
I mean, I honestly, full disclosure, I'm a very transparent person. I haven't felt like I've earned the vegan title until
Hmm.
this month, really.
Really?
Yeah, because I've been in practice, I've been 95, 97% vegan, but every now and then, like maybe once every week or every other week, I'd have something that would have like whey in it or something, or I'd have
Right.
something that have a little bit of cheese, and I'm like, I feel like I'd feel like a sham if I call myself a vegan.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
didn't. I didn't call myself a vegan. And then for the beginning of this year, I was like, I'm going to do a 30-day trial of being really, really specific about it and not having anything that's not um, animal products in my, no animal products at all.
That's legit. I think that, yeah, but then, but then you get rolling on this, you get used to this, and then it's easy to avoid those other.
No, I'm talking about food I shouldn't eat at all, Drew. I'm talking about like
Okay.
chocolates and stuff.
Oh man, we get such good chocolate here. You can get stuff that doesn't have any of that stuff, and it tastes good. It's not like you're making any compromises either.
No, I know. It's the problem. This is why people don't go vegan the day before Christmas. So
Oh, okay,
now the
yeah.
Christmas candies are gone.
Right, right, right.
Do you have that though? Do people give you stuff in your family? You're describing. It sounds like you're the only vegan in your family, or were for a long time.
Oh yeah.
Do you just say, you know what, just don't give me any food, or how do you find? That was a real big challenge for me when I went vegetarian. I was the only vegetarian in my entire family, and I have like 40 cousins. I've really felt like I was a super weirdo, but I wanted to do this for myself. But people gave me
Mhm.
a lot of flack for what they described me as being picky. What was your experience with that?
I mean, definitely there's jokes being made and stuff like that, but over time, like they see the results, and like my
Hmm.
dad recently has lost 50 pounds. He's not 100%
Whoa.
vegan, and he's done this before. Like he's a guy who's capable of cutting back on calories and doing all that, even on a meat based diet.
Hmm.
But this was even easier and faster and more enjoyable for him, and he's
Hmm.
more satisfied in the end. Like he just discovered quinoa like 6 months ago, so he's the picky eater, and he's actually expanding new foods because of this whole vegan thing. So for him, it's not really going into the vegan world wasn't really cutting back. It was actually like getting new foods and new flavors for him. So it's kind of the opposite because he was already the picky eater. I was never really a picky eater, but um, yeah. So
That's beautiful. I'm like so stoked for your dad, like discovering quinoa. Man, I wish my
yeah,
parents
discovered
would
quinoa.
discover
He's like
quinoa.
he wants it like with every meal. My mom, because my mom just cooks everything for him, and
Yeah.
it's like it's a joke around the house that he's like partial vegan now, and he's like real proud of it. During Christmas time, he was saying that he's like, "Oh, I can't believe your mom's cooking that poison for everybody," and saying stuff like that. I was just cracking up because
Oh man.
he's the one who was making the jokes all along about eating lettuce and rabbit food and all this stuff, and then now he's like all proud because he got the good results. So you just show people the results, and they're into it.
I guess that is totally true, and thank you for sharing that. I'm really excited for you. I'm 50 pounds. That's something to be really proud of. Um,
Yeah.
I guess the challenge with me is very few people in my family are actually obese, so
Hmm.
they don't think there's a problem,
Yeah.
and like, how do you approach that? I try to educate them. I say, well, instance of heart disease, obviously,
Yeah.
how acidic your body is, but I guess I have a pretty stubborn family.
Well, like I said earlier, my grandfather passed away from a heart attack, and he was one of the skinniest guys in the family.
Oh yeah.
So he was a Cuban guy. He had been eating all the meat stuff his whole life, along with everybody else. It just was in his genetics or in his
Mm.
metabolism, maybe not to gain as much weight as some of the other people. But he was eating the same foods. He was just probably a little more active. He gardened. Um, he did stuff more active than like an average 75-year-old guy. He was still like real handy around the house and always running errands and stuff like that.
That's great.
So, but even all that, I mean, that couldn't stop the heart attack. And he had like I think
Mm.
three ventricles were completely shut down. His body they couldn't even do surgery on him to do the bypass because he needed a triple bypass, and he was already kind of on death's bed. And you're talking about a guy who was no more than 170 pounds, 5'10". He was still relatively lean. He was still in the normal range of weight. He
Yeah.
wasn't even close to fat or obese or anything
Wow.
like that.
And it was just plaque. It was just
Just plaque in the arteries. Yep.
damn.
And to be fair, they said that they felt that it was from his cigarette smoking, but he
Mm.
stopped smoking cigarettes over 25 years ago.
Yeah.
So, I'm
Mm.
I'm less inclined to believe that it was the cigarettes from 25 years ago than the food that he's been eating for the whole 75 years of his life.
Yeah. 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 And especially like you know that if he had reduced that, the chances are that that would start to clear up. I mean,
It would start to clear out.
yeah, I mean, once you start to alkalize your body a little bit, your body can heal itself. You just have to give it what it needs.
You alkalize, you give
Mm,
it the plant fibers, you give it the less cholesterol, so it stops adding the plaque to begin with, and your
yes.
body just naturally cleans itself out. And we have these like blatant scientific studies at this point that are showing the results of this that can't really be disputed. They can be um, repeated over and over and over.
Yeah.
So there should be no argument. There really is no argument anymore, in my opinion, and like what I'm understanding.
No, I agree, but food is so personal. I mean, food is like religion to people. I've observed anyway. It's challenging for people to who haven't been exposed to it before. Go, what? I can't eat this and this and this, but this is what my parents made for me, and it was healthy, and that's how we grew up.
Yeah.
And tradition is tough to break, but I think as people become more aware and more conscious about it, it becomes part of the awareness that we're surrounded with, and it becomes easier for people to change their habits. I mean, if habits were easy to change, everybody would be Superman and Superwoman.
Yeah, they wouldn't have started on the bad stuff to begin with.
Yeah, but it is possible. Well, believe it or not, this is not a vegan podcast. It's a growth oriented entrepreneur podcast. But I find it fascinating how often veganism comes up
Hmm.
among people who are oriented towards personal growth.
Hmm.
It obviously doesn't always come up, but I'm really pleasantly surprised because the more you look into it, the more you see how big of an impact it makes. You know how much water it saves, how much better it is for your body. And then you get
Yeah.
the animal cruelty aspects to it. I mean, I recommend everybody who's interested in veganism look up a film, and I'm sure you've seen this or one of these. Two films are wonderful: Food Incorporated, Food Inc., and Forks Over Knives. Have you
I
seen
have
that?
seen forks over knives. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and it's and when you see just the reality of the science behind being vegan and the reality of how meat is processed, it's a real eye opener. And
Hmm.
I showed that to people and they go, "Whoa, I didn't realize there was so much filler." And chicken nuggets are mostly corn. It's very
Mm.
strange. It's very strange.
Yep.
So you come to Big Island
Hmm.
and you go on this week long retreat and it's transformative. Did that give you the idea to, hey, I could, was that one of the big seeds of, hey, I could stay here, I could make this work because you got that taste the first time?
Yeah, I wanted to come to see more so than the retreat, more so than my interest in the retreat was I wanted to see if people were doing this stuff for real. Meaning I wanted to see if people were really living off the land, really being vegan 24/7, 100% of the time, because that's kind of like what I was doing. And I was interested to see how other people were doing it. And I wanted to see how healthy and athletic they were firsthand. I wanted to look into their eyes and see, you know,
Is it really working?
yeah, is it really working for these people? Because I was still relatively new into my journey on that. And I just hadn't really met too many other people that were doing it full time. And so I just kind of wanted to get into that brainstorming aspect and, see what stuff was working for other people and all that. So it definitely gave me that perspective as soon as I got here. And for sure, I was like, once I got the taste of that and I saw how everybody was sort of there to help each other in terms of their health journeys and everybody, the conversations that come up are stuff that I'm actually interested in. What do you know? We're talking about digestion and health and topics that my friends back in my other communities or whatever
Mm-hmm.
you want to call it
Mm-hmm.
were just simply not interested in. And I was always the odd one out. Yet now I come here and it's like the normal topic to discuss, how you how you lost weight
Yeah.
or how your physical performance is doing or whatever.
Were you just you're just reminding me of the fact that I was like the only person in my friend group who read the ingredients to everything. I don't know if you were that person, but once you start to get more aware of like, you know what? Okay, so we know now that food is the most efficient pathway to health.
Hmm.
and exercise obviously, but the food is such a because if you're giving your body toxins, you're
Mm-hmm.
burdening it, and it's comes down to chemistry, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
would just read the ingredients of everything. Were you the ingredient reading guy, or is it mostly just you were diving into these books and going, "Wow, this is just the research is amazing," and the results. I'm also curious, like how if YouTube played a factor in this, because I find that so many people, find someone they like on YouTube, and it becomes almost like a virtual mentor in a way.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think I became the weird guy when I decided to go quote unquote fruitarian.
You went fruitarian.
Well, this was right, this was right in the beginning of my thing. I was like, well, I'm gonna go vegan, and then I said, okay, well, what's the best version of veganism? And I said, oh, fruitarianism. Whoa, this has got to be the best thing. And then so I just
It's
went
pretty
straight into
hardcore.
that. What's that?
It's pretty hardcore.
It's very hardcore, and so I tried that for a couple days, and then I just went back to eating cooked vegan food, and I was very satisfied with the
Mhm.
progress and results of that. But definitely, I've used YouTube as a mentor for many subjects and topics. I find that you can get a pretty high level of knowledge if you know what to filter out and what to allow into your mind when you're watching
Definitely.
these YouTube videos. Like you gotta read the comments. You gotta get a feel for what these people are talking about. If there's a lot of controversy around somebody, then maybe where there's smoke, there's fire. Maybe you don't want to be following those people's
Could
advice.
be.
But there's other people who do seem to have really good advice, and you do have to use your street smarts about it. But if you weed through the BS, then you can get some good stuff out of it.
So this is a perfect segue to something else I was curious about.
Hmm.
You go to the Big Island and you see, like we were talking about, how the land is much more deliberately used. And
Hmm.
I'm guessing you were learning a lot about, also eating locally in addition to eating vegan.
Hmm.
I'm curious, like how what eating locally and sustainability means to you now that you're on Hawaii compared to before. That was something that I was really shocked how much I learned that I didn't anticipate I would learn so much.
It's a good question. In California, we have droughts like 24/7 in Southern California. So
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
always being monitored about every little drop of water that you can use. And you see the contrast there versus here, where everybody's using the rain system to their advantage for basically free water. They're taking showers with it. They're even, like you said, using the UV to turn it into drinking water. And it just seems like such a smarter system. And yet over there, we're pumping water into the deserts of Southern California from Northern California.
Yeah.
That's just basically it's evaporating overnight. And now you have situations there where the federal government is giving grants to people. They're paying people to take out their grass lawns to put in astroturf and rock gardens
I
because
didn't
they
know they were
realize that
paying
it's
people now. That's amazing.
right. You're getting big tax breaks. So you're essentially getting paid to change your front yard into a
Right.
water eating grass to
Right.
a rock garden that doesn't use
Yeah.
doesn't use water.
Xenoscape, right? Is that what they call it?
I'm not sure, but I've had a lot of people looking into it.
Right, yeah, in the form of tax breaks, it basically is. Yeah, it's basically being paid by the federal government, and I think
Mhm.
that's the future. You have to look at where are you really like. is does what kind of place was this 100 years ago before there were that many people here?
Yeah.
And it's funny how things scale pretty well when there's only 10,000 people. And then
Hmm.
sometimes a system just kind of breaks when you pass 2 million people or a half million people even. And that's something that we're being forced to think about more and more as human population grows and there's more demands on water and waste management. It's crazy. It's crazy. So it's kind of encouraging to hear that at least they're getting real incentives to stop watering their lawns. I mean, I remember when I lived in California, it broke my heart to see these lawns being watered. It's
Hmm.
just like, why? What are you doing?
Yeah, you can only water on certain days of the week, so everybody's lawn is dying anyways. So it's the front yards are looking terrible. Everything looks like it's just this dried up brown grass and dirt patches basically. And yeah, so it became an issue. Water is getting more expensive there, and you've got everybody just fighting for the same small source of resources.
Well, that's a good segue to another thing I was curious about was do you have any advice for our listeners besides don't have a lawn in the desert
Mhm.
on how to be more sustainable?
Yeah, I think it kind of starts with your. I thought about this a little bit earlier. It kind of starts with your personal belongings first and foremost.
Hmm.
So just try to minimize your inflow of things. I'm not saying to be what's now the hot topic online is to be a minimalist,
Hmm.
but minimize your inflow and it will naturally minimize your outflow of waste products.
Hmm.
Do you need a bunch of pairs of shoes that you'll never wear? And then even more practically speaking, are you composting your fruits and vegetables, like the waste products from those things? Because
Hmm.
that's a big thing that we do here in Hawaii. We have buckets. We have our own like system basically that we have empty buckets. All of us in this house eat fruit and vegetables, and we throw them away in these compost buckets, and then we take them to either friends' farms or worst case scenario, we take it to the dump and we put it in with the rest of the composting, which then gets recycled back into the earth. So when you make the connection that the fruit and vegetables that are growing the land require nutrients to grow and taste their best, you start to realize that you got to put that stuff back into the earth. And it, to me, it feels like the least I can do for the environment.
I really like that idea of just looking at the inflow and the outflow.
Mhm.
You know, I actually do describe myself as a minimalist. I was using that word before it got all popular, but it's true.
Mhm.
You don't even need to be a minimalist. You just need to look at what you actually need and where your waste is going and what you're
Mhm.
bringing in. I think I think people would benefit a lot even just jotting down a short list and going, well, is there a way I can do this a little bit more intelligently? Even if you can
Yeah.
do it 10% more intelligently over the course of a year, that's a pretty big impact.
Yeah, take it. Take every advantage that you can get, even if it's 1%. Do whatever you can, and I just recommend that as a general rule of life to take the advantages that you can, that aren't going to compromise you. And
Hmm.
like I said, composting your vegetables, it's not like it's going to completely hamper your week. So just do these small things, and it has a big payoff.
It can also be a lot of fun. I mean, you go, wow, we got like soil and stuff from what we thought was trash, and now we can plant our own food. And
Yeah.
even something in terms of like sharing with your neighborhood. Sometimes neighborhoods will have a shared compost system, like you were talking about.
Yeah, it's amazing how this stuff works. I'm not a farmer by any means, but I planted some Tongan spinach, which grows locally here in the backyard really well, and
Mm.
it didn't grow for 4 months. It stayed about 2 feet tall, the exact same. And then one day I decided to take some compost, fresh compost that we had laying around. I put it on there. I come back like 2 weeks later because I didn't even look at it, and then now it's almost twice as tall. So just instantly grew because of the nutrients and the freshness that I brought to it.
And you don't even have to be a farmer to really feel that. It's just something ingrained in us where you plant something and you go, wow, I nurtured this thing and now it's going to help me, and it's this symbiotic relationship. So you're not a farmer. This is a good pivot to where is your focus right now? And it sounds like a big part of your focus is this like popular new dating app that I keep hearing about that's rapidly growing. I think it's called HunnyBee. Is that was your idea?
That is 100% my idea. I can take credit for that. Yes.
Yes.
It is definitely a big focus of mine. That's something that I work on throughout the day, every single day. There's no days off really when you have your own fledgling business. So
So could you describe for the audience what exactly is HunnyBee?
HunnyBee is a vegan and vegetarian dating app similar to other large dating apps that are out there on the app stores, for iPhones and Android phones. Now this is only for iPhone, but we will be moving it to that platform eventually. But yeah, it's basically to get vegans and vegetarians together. And I noticed that there was just kind of a void in that area for this community. And you see online, like there's a lot of memes going around the internet, like you'll see the skeleton guy sitting on the bench waiting for my vegan boyfriend or waiting for my vegan girlfriend.
I've seen that one.
Yeah, it's like, well, then let's do something about that. And everybody else has a dating app. They've got niche dating apps for nearly every single little thing that you can think of. So why not this? And it seems to me that the majority of the time, vegans and vegetarians want to date each other. So
Definitely.
um,
Definitely.
I just felt like I would want to use this app myself. So let's make it.
So what was your process of you have the idea?
Hmm.
What did you reach out? Do you write code yourself? Or are you more of a designer, or are you just
I
the
am
idea guy?
more, yeah, I'm more of a business, all around business, bring people together to make something happen type of guy. And in this particular case, I had the vision for it, and I also had the funding for it. Luckily, it's kind of an idea that I created around the middle of 2015, about a year after going vegan. And I just started noticing those little things like vegans wanting to get together and stuff like that. And nothing like it was out there. So I started just doing the initial research online.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I have a marketing business background. So I had some kind of tools to research it, and some experience just selling products in the past for other companies. So I knew it was going to be a long road to get started on this thing, but
Mm-hmm.
it's kind of a crazy story. In the beginning, I had a partner who was involved. He wasn't vegan, but he wanted to help me out. He was going to write the code. He wanted to split everything with me 50-50. But he eventually actually tried to steal the idea from me completely. Yeah.
No.
Uh-huh. Yep. And so this whole thing, the whole way has been bumps and more bumps, but
Wow.
it's not something that I was willing to stop. But so that guy, yeah, he started actually creating his own parallel website and platform without me after like 6 months of going through negotiations with him, and trying to get it all started. So it was a hurtful experience. I was pretty devastated. I almost gave up on doing the whole thing. And then a week after that, I was laid off from my full time position at work.
Wow.
And so it was like a terrible week for me. It was kind of a wake up call.
All in the
And also,
same week?
same week,
Oh
the
man.
guy basically says, "I don't need you for your own idea. Goodbye." And then I got laid off from my job that I'd been working at for over 4 years, and was very comfortable at that point. I was working from home. It was a good position for me
Nice.
to be vegan and do that whole transition. But I was already kind of getting through. I wasn't a newbie vegan anymore. I was
Mm-hmm.
starting to just try and build a business or move on to the next project type of thing. Um,
So what did you do?
well, once I was cut from his project, then I realized that I just have to rely on myself to get this thing started. And I reached out to some developers that had a product that could help me do this, and I got the negotiations going with them. That was like in late January, let's say, of 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, late,
Mm-hmm.
late January 2016. And then that next month is when I went to go to Evan's retreat in Hawaii.
Oh boy.
And I had all these negotiations set up ready to go with my team. It was just, they said, okay, let us know when you want to pull the trigger on this thing. And so I went kind of as a mental relief to this retreat. I wanted to talk to Evan. I know he's a successful business guy in his own right, in his own field. Also with conscious businesses, he's made videos on that before too on YouTube.
Oh, you should shoot me a link to that. I don't know if I've seen those yet. He's actually on my list to interview eventually.
Yeah, he's a really good guy to talk to. So I needed that, like, almost that reassurance, or somebody else who is experienced in this field that wanted to, or that could say, that's a good idea, go for it.
Mm-hmm.
I wish you the best of luck. Like, I felt like I needed that last little push.
Sure.
Um, and then I came home, and then I got started on it the next day. Basically, I made my down payment for the products that I needed, and they started work for me pretty much immediately. And the rest is history.
Wow. It sounds like you can really clearly connect the dots looking backward now. It sounds
Yeah.
like what you learned in your corporate job really is applied to this. That's wonderful to hear. I mean, the app itself, I'm looking at the app right now, and it's very well done. It's
Nice. Thank you.
it's I mean, having a design background myself, it's quite clear, and it looks excellent. I mean, I don't know how
Thank you.
I don't know how I would change it myself.
Yeah, I'm not a designer. I'm not a coder. I'm not any one of these things, but I'm the guy right in the middle. And I know enough of how I want it to look. I know enough about these things where I can speak the language to the coders, and I can get everybody together to make something like that happen. And I've always wanted a product that I could sell myself that was going to be something that I was, proud of, and that was a good quality item. I wasn't just in the business to make something that could make money. In fact, when I got this whole thing started, I genuinely figured I could spend thousands and thousands of dollars on this thing and spend a bunch of time, and it may never pay off at all. And even if that happened, I was okay with it. And so that that passion project is what allowed me to continue this far, I guess.
So are you saying you didn't have to go to investors? You completely self-funded this
Yeah, at
for
this
the
point
most
right
part?
now, I'm 100% self-funded, 100% owned by myself. The business is under HunnyBee LLC. Yeah.
That must be a great feeling because you don't have other interests trying to push you in a different direction.
Yep. If you get investors involved, then they're of course going to have their own opinions on it, and then they're also going to, when it comes to tech software, they're going to get involved for way too cheap. And
Hmm.
um, and the reality is, you can create something amazing for not as much as people think if you're resourceful and you're also willing to put in a lot of work yourself. And I had nothing but time. Like I said, I was laid off. So it was kind of like a do it yourself
Hmm.
situation where I was also spending a lot of my own time and hours, just being resourceful and getting a lot of these components together, like the designs and the artwork and all this stuff.
Yeah, I think people don't realize how much work goes into creating an app that brings people together. I mean, you have to have the design, you have to have code that works,
Hmm.
and you have to have a back end where you've got servers providing the service so that the app works and connects people together.
Yeah, you need so much stuff, and just even the process of getting something into the iPhone App Store, it's not an easy process. There's so many hoops to jump through, and luckily I had a good team that could pull it off from start to finish, of course with a lot of my own input. But yeah, now I've got a product I can show people. I can show an investor and say, "Hey, look what I've already got." And now it's a totally different conversation than saying, "Hey, I'm thinking about this idea. Do you want to get involved?" And then it's like they're going to want to get involved for pennies on the dollar, whereas now it's a different story.
Yeah, you actually have a product that works. I mean, I can't believe it. Right now, I'm in Wisconsin, which is like not the best place for finding vegan people.
Right.
It's like the cheese state. I mean,
Yep.
there are there are vegans here, thank goodness, but it's not nearly as common per capita
Hmm.
as Hawaii. And even so, there are some people I've logged in and I'm looking at the app right now, and even so, there are some people around. They're a little bit far away, but it's surprising, for this app is still relatively young and you're competing with some big services.
Yeah, definitely.
So how do you, I mean, I guess I give you a lot of credit for having the faith in your idea to
Hmm.
to go after it. And I see that it's growing and growing all the time. Uh, how are you reaching people, if I can ask?
We are primarily marketing through social media,
Hmm.
and just creating a community around the Instagram has been what I've been focused on recently. Making sure to interact with the people who happen to like your photos, follow your Instagram. This is actually a Gary V concept, if people are familiar with
Love
him.
Gary V.
Yeah. So he says social media has to be social. You have to actually be social with your audience. You can't just post pictures with cute captions. You also have to interact with them, and that's something that I have no problem doing. So I
Hmm.
do spend a couple hours a day writing people comments, leaving comments, just being active. And of course, there's the route of Facebook marketing. You can pay for boosting ads through Instagram, Facebook. You can pay for ads on iPhone App Store, which up until this point, I've spent very, very, very little on marketing. So for the growth that we have right now, per dollar, it's actually paying off really well. And also some other things happened along the way. Like there was some competitors that were going head to head with me in the App Store. There's actually a guy who started a vegan and vegetarian dating app the exact same month that I launched mine.
Wow.
Like there was nobody for years, and then all of a sudden, boom, you've got two competitors, and then it turned to three and four and five
Wow.
competitors, and it's just one of those things you got to stick around. You got to keep focusing on making a good product.
Hmm.
You got to keep focusing on doing things the right way, following the rules. And here I am now at the top of the list on the iPhone App Store. If you were to type in vegan dating, boom, HunnyBee is number one.
And how did you pull that off? Just by sheer downloads and getting, and, encouraging people to leave reviews of the app?
Yeah, everything I could do. I went on some Facebook forums in the very beginning, just shooting it out to 5,000 people at a time on these like vegan singles pages and saying, "Hey, I've got this app that I've created." Of course, I talked to the moderators and made sure that that was okay. But I started kind of like self advertising, saying this is what's going on, and running promotions for people, making there's some incentive to get in there. I'll give you free credits so that you could play around with this and use these special features that normally cost money, and then just giving things away. Again, having faith that things would eventually start steamrolling. And when I came to Hawaii, I had less than 300 users on the app, and it had been out for like 5 or 6 months. And
Really?
now I can say that we're basically 10x that now. So, and it's growing every month exponentially, which is just amazing.
Hey, congratulations, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Isn't it amazing how it starts to snowball? You really see this geometric growth when you can consistently provide a good service, but it has to be reliable and it has to be consistently good.
Has to be. Because the app game, there's so many other options. You have to be solid all around.
I'm looking at the results for vegan dating on the App Store right now, just because I feel like our listeners would be curious. And you have very high ratings, and some of these other apps have 1 star, 2 stars,
Right.
average. What's going on,
And
people?
there's actually apps that were there that were competing with me head to head, but like I said, they're not there anymore. So who knows what happened with them? We don't need to name names on the competition, but
No.
it's a game of sticking around.
Mhm.
Sustainability. Can you be sustainable? That applies to the business model as well.
Very true. Very true. I also like your design. How did you get to the icon of a bee? I'm curious how you came to that. It's a very striking, eye-catching design.
Sweet. Yeah, thank you. I actually created the name Honeybee the exact way that it's spelt. Like first one of the first things. I just in my mind I wanted something kind of catchy and cute, and there's a few different names, but I also wanted it to have sort of a meaning behind it. Of course, the way that I spelt it is HUNNY, so it's kind of like, "Hey, honey," that's kind of
Mhm.
a endearing term that people use, and they typically spell it that way.
Mhm.
And then also, it's just what do bees do? They pollinate. So I wanted that sort of playful sexual innuendo, if you will, in the name of the app. People pollinate each other, and I wanted the vegans to pollinate. So that's kind of how I put the two together. And then that icon, I just got really lucky. I found it through a stock icon site. This guy had this amazing design with awesome handwriting, which was all created by this guy in I think Bulgaria.
Wow.
And I contacted him directly, and we made a deal, and I purchased that from him, and then I used that for the design, the main logo.
I really like the logo, and I'm very picky about logos.
When I saw it, it was the one. That was it. It was the one, and it had to be that.
And I've made a lot of logos, so
Oh,
it's definitely one of the strongest identity designs that I could see in here.
awesome. Thank
So
you.
you're advertising via Facebook. You also have a lot of organic things on Instagram that are happening, and it's starting to. Are you targeting people via Facebook ads as well? In terms of, you can get very 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 specific
Hmm.
in Facebook ads, but you have to be very careful because it can also chew through your money very quickly if you're not careful.
That's a good point. The very interesting thing about dating apps specifically on Facebook is, and nobody knows this, but Facebook for years, up until about 6 months ago, had a all-out ban on advertising via Facebook with dating apps.
Really?
So so you they actually had a form that you must fill out specifically for dating apps, And you fill out this form, you input it to their business team, and they would either approve you or they would deny you. So for the last 2 or 3 years, I heard that they were not denying, or they were not accepting any new dating apps to the platform to advertise. People were calling all kinds of conspiracies on this, why it's happening. The big guys paid them off or whatever. But
Mhm.
you can imagine that was the way that I planned to advertise my app before I ever created it.
Sure.
And then all of a sudden now I'm stuck here with a brand new baby app, and I can't even advertise the one way that's possible for me to even afford in the first place. Because like you said, you can get very specific. So
Mhm.
your money goes the furthest if you're the smartest with your targeting.
Exactly.
And I have actually successfully ran Facebook ads since they removed the ban about 6 months ago, and it's actually very effective. The ads are they do very very well.
I'm sure they do. I mean, if you know someone's vegan, you can center right in because there's certain keywords that vegans will look for that,
Mhm.
and vegetarians too, that people who aren't vegan or vegetarian won't really come across. So you can get, it's amazing if Facebook knows too much about you. That's the
They
short
do.
version. That's the short version of it.
Yeah, because we give it to them. We tell them our likes and dislikes and every single thing about us, whether we're single, whether we're in a relationship, and it's
Yeah.
an amazing marketing tool. That's why the company's worth billions of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely the most accessible ad platform. And that's rolled in with Instagram now too. It's
Mhm.
the same exact area. So if you haven't already make an ad and you can get, yeah, I want this on Instagram too. And it's basically like a checkbox the last time I did it.
Yep,
That's awesome.
that's what I'm doing now too.
So this segues perfectly to my next question, which is, I guess you do use social media daily. How do you find balance in your daily routine with social media? It's become such a big part of everyone's lives now. I'm always curious to ask people how they find balance and how they know if they're spending too much time or not enough time.
It's just like the veganism and the health and all this stuff that the group of friends here talk about. We have talked about recently how much we actually using our phones and our social media platforms, and if that's like affecting our day to day.
Hmm.
And there's actually apps out there that will track how much you use your phone, and I think the average is something like 4 hours a day on your mobile device. So it's something
Yep.
crazy. Like the average person actually picks up their phone and looks at the screen something like 100 times a day. I want to say something crazy like that.
It sounds about right
So
for a lot of people.
yeah, and for me, I use it, for personal and business, of course. And it's so integral to any modern business that it can't not be used. You must use it, in my opinion. But I find balance by unfollowing people who are not directly kind of contributing to my growth as a human being.
Amen to that.
If I don't know them personally, then I'm not going to add them or follow them. And that's the only control that we really have. We can manage our feed so that we don't lose our sanity, just like getting lost in other people's lives that we don't even know or really care about. And then, so um, I see a lot of what people share online as kind of useless sometimes, and I'll either
Yeah.
unfollow them or unfollow their posts. And it's not anything personal. It's just that that's the that's the one thing I can control. So out of sight, out of mind. And
Hmm.
I recommend people to sort of like do yourself the favor and just, if you don't have a specific reason to be following somebody, then cut the cord.
I agree completely. It really
Yeah.
does a lot of good to do some house cleaning every now and then. And I can tell you're a really focused guy, and that's why you've been able to
The
accomplish.
focus is not my forte. That's the thing, is that I'm utilizing these little tricks along the way to
Hmm.
help myself be focused, because I know people that are just exceptionally well focused naturally, and they have trouble like making friends or these other types of things that other people might find easy. And so if you're somebody like me who actually doesn't have natural focus, I have to
Mm.
employ these tactics to get myself to be focused.
But it sounds like you've gotten a lot better over time. Like it's a value to you. So you
Yes.
use in those tactics to triage and get more clear. Do you have any advice for people who would want to start their own uh, I was gonna joke around and say vegan dating app. Terrible joke. If people want to start
Yeah.
their, say
Let me know
don't.
if you find that
He'll
guy.
find you. Uh, no, really. There's what I was gonna say was to start their own conscious business. It sounds like you've obviously been through a lot of different stages to reach this point. You know, you've changed your life around to see how much better you feel being vegan. And now you've created an app where vegans and vegetarians meet each other. And I mean, did you ever think you would be here like 5, 10 years ago?
No way. I mean, I always knew I wanted my own business, but I never thought it would be something like this. I never thought I'd be vegan. I was definitely the guy who made fun of vegans and all that stuff because I was just kind of in the meathead gym world. Everything was about just getting bigger and stronger and all this stuff, and just really kind of typical lowbrow behavior. But once I transitioned to that, I was like, oh, actually, the joke was on me, you know? So
Mm-hmm.
I would prefer to feel good now and find other people who care about that because it's hard to interact with people that just don't care at all about their health and don't realize how much that plays a role in the rest of their lives. But I guess to answer your question about um, advice for people starting conscious businesses, I probably have a few things. Number one would be to be in it for the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
You never know when you're going to catch your break. And the only way to catch your break is to physically be there. You have to still physically be there and be ready to stick around even when things aren't growing as fast as you want them to. And that happened for me about 6 months ago when one of my biggest competitors just all of a sudden one day disappeared from the App Store. And,
Wow.
you know, he was number one, I was number two. We were actually swapping positions back and forth for several months. And one day it's just he was gone. I think he may have violated some terms of service. I can't really say, but
Mm.
like I said, do things the right way and you will be rewarded for it in the end. But again, sometimes that takes a while for that to flush out. Um, Another thing I would say is just ask yourself what else you could be doing to make your thing better.
Mm-hmm.
If you are creating an app, or I'm sorry, not creating an app, but creating a business, what else could you be doing to either start that business or what else could you be doing to make your business better? And then find the areas that need the most attention and then create a plan for it and execute it. Um, Also, another thing I would say is don't be afraid to take the first step and to start it alone. As I said
Mm-hmm.
in my story, you know, I had to start it alone. I thought I had this great partnership going on, but if I would have just stopped there, then I would have had nothing now. And I'm so glad looking back 2 years ago that I did start because now I actually have something and it's just paying off more and more over time, which is really awesome. And just to realize that, you know, no business is going to go from an idea to success overnight. So there's 100 or 1,000 small steps in between and to remember progress over perfection. So
Mm-hmm.
take that step, keep it moving, and you will just keep growing naturally. You don't really know how that's going to happen. You might not even be able to foresee how the growth is going to happen, but if you keep putting in the consistent effort,
Mm-hmm.
then you'll see the results and you will grow into that person. That's just the way it is. It's kind of like you're moving forward with the blindfold on, but you're still moving forward, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It reminds me
Uh,
of something that one of my favorite writers used to say. He used to say all the time that Steve Pavlina, you might have heard of him.
mm,
Steve is a really big inspiration to me. Has been for a long time. And Steve Pavlina used to say, you have to create the value, but you have to deliver the value too.
mm,
And if you're just creating all the time, people might not know you exist. So you have to make sure you're
right.
connecting with people at the same time. And when I
It's a
heard,
balance.
definitely, definitely. And thank you for that answer, by the way. I'm going to be thinking about that for a while. And
I have one more if you don't mind.
oh, go ahead, please.
This applied directly to me when I got here. Is when I got here, I was so burnt out actually on creating this thing. Like I wasn't even talking to people about it.
Did you feel like
About
it
the
was almost like a failure because it hadn't caught on more?
Yeah, I thought there would be like thousands of people running to this thing, and then
Mm-hmm.
there wasn't.
I know that feeling well.
Yeah,
I
and
made the
you know,
thing. Why? Where are the thousands of
yeah,
people?
if you build it, they will come, and then they don't come. You're like, well, that's not true, you know.
We've all
But
watched The Field of Dreams. Like
exactly.
the guy's in it. That one guy, he's always right.
And you know, if you're unmotivated, then and you need to take a break, then do it. You can always come
Yep.
back to where you
Yep.
left off, but don't just thrash the project
You,
because
you don't have to throw a flaming chair through the window and burn the house down.
yeah, exactly. exactly. Just, if you allow yourself to become re-inspired and remotivated and come back again, and you will be better and stronger, and also maybe find partnerships that will help you maybe shore up your own weaknesses. If you're finding it a struggle to do certain things, then bring people in and be willing to give back and pay for that help,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Pay it forward.
Yeah, exactly. And be proud that you're giving somebody else the opportunity to get involved in something that you've put your time and effort and creativity into. You're now giving that, you have something to actually give people, and then allow them to maybe change their lives in the future as you move forward with your business.
Oh my God, I love that. It's so true. Was that part of your thought about coming to Hawaii? Is that you were going to kind of recharge and perhaps even network with people that would help you move forward?
Yes, I absolutely had the secret intention of networking with vegans, especially influential vegans.
No reason to
Well,
keep it secret. I mean,
yeah,
vegans want to hang out with vegans. Like we need to
true.
stick together, right?
I agree. Yeah.
And trade recipes, but also change the world.
Exactly.
Literally change the world. So what
Agree.
was your last point? I'm sorry.
I think that was
Or did
pretty
I?
much it.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
That was beautiful, Drew. I love how you articulated that. So how do you see sustainable businesses sort of evolving and changing in the future? And I mean, obviously it's like a requirement to be on social media now, especially if you have an app, especially if it's something even remotely related to the internet. But even if it's not, even if it's a brick and mortar business, I'm
Hmm.
just curious, as you've gotten into this community more, I'm sure you know a lot of business owners, some of which will probably be on this show in the future. And I'm wondering how you see that changing over time, if you've noticed any patterns or just any thoughts around that.
I think that really companies are starting to realize you can't just go the cheapest route anymore to create a product.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got more educated consumers, and the consumer is actually willing to pay a little bit more these days for a product if it means that, some poor factory worker across the world won't be paid a slave wage. So
Mm-hmm.
the almighty rule of profits or profit margin over everything is, the consumer isn't willing to accept that anymore. They are actually kind of like fighting back with the companies and demanding a more wholesome, a more sustainable product. So the companies are reflecting that demand. And you see this with veganism all the time, like companies such as Beyond Meat, let's say, who's creating a brand new technological beef that, people are going crazy over, because there's a different demand, because the demand stems from sustainability and
Mm-hmm.
health and all these other things. And, uh, to my knowledge, it's relatively affordable. It's not like these people are charging, um, diamond prices for these foods that people want. They're making it available and accessible for most people, I think.
Just in terms of like meat substitutes, you mean?
Yeah, just that's just one example. Meat substitutes, just vegan restaurant chains and stuff like that. I heard some stat the other day. I don't know if this is accurate, but it was like one of those little Facebook tickers, and it
Mm.
said, demand for vegan and vegetarian foods rose 1,000% in 2017.
No way.
Yeah.
That's
So if that
awesome.
and according to my research, vegans and vegetarians grew from a total of 1% of the population in 2010 to 5% in 2015. So 5% growth in 5 years, which is kind
It's
of like exponential.
it's 5x in 5 years, right?
Exactly. That's right.
That's insane.
So you've got, more people just being conscious and aware. And then, like I said, they're not willing to let companies get away with murder anymore. They're not willing to let the companies rip the consumer off and also rip their suppliers off. There's got to be some, uh, they're closing up that gap in the middle. So I'm not sure if that answers the question, but, um,
No, I think it answers it fine. I think it's amazing how in one level when you go to certain places it feels like the world hasn't changed very much,
mhm,
but when you go to other places it feels like a different decade sometimes.
yeah,
And that's the strangest thing I think about the 21st century to me is how different places can feel so separate even in the midst of the internet.
Yeah.
It's very tempting to fall into the trap of thinking we're in some kind of monoculture
Right.
in some way, but we're not. The challenge is that we're all in our own bubbles and we think we're in a monoculture.
Yeah, there's definitely nuances to every single area. Even within the United States, you can see that there's just different parts of the US that have completely different vibes from each other, and businesses in each area require completely different practices and cultural practices to just standard business practices. There's all kinds of stuff. A business has to evolve and adapt in order to survive, no matter what era it's in.
Can I ask you an off the wall question that you didn't know I was going to ask you?
Sure, I'm ready.
Have you ever considered doing a YouTube advertisement that was funny, or collaborating with other vegans on the Big Island that was just something along the lines of not a vlog, but something that was very, funny and collaborated with other people in the vegosphere, which is a word I've just made up. Because it's really funny. I lived on Hawaii for a year and a half,
Mhm,
and I had no idea how many vegans there were. I knew that there were a lot of vegans around me, but it was really
mhm,
interesting. I left and I kind of missed Hawaii and was started watching stuff on YouTube, and I was like, "Oh my goodness. I had
mhm.
no idea how rapidly growing this is, especially on Hawaii."
It's huge. Like, there's some local businesses here that sell boxes of bananas, let's say. And
Mhm.
over the last 5 years, some of my friends who've been buying bananas there every week, they can't buy bananas anymore because there's so many vegans here that are just blowing off the shelves. And these people are like, there's like no loyalty, they're not, they're just selling first come, first served. And all the local businesses are loving it who are farmers and stuff like that. Cause
Oh
you've
my
got
goodness.
people are so passionate about buying mass quantities of fruit and vegetables and they're willing to pay for it. And you've got these exotic fruits like durian and stuff like that that people are paying whatever $6, $8 a pound for.
Yep.
And of course, that these people are totally loving it. But I forgot the question once again.
All of a sudden it's banana wars. I was just asking you if you've considered doing something,
Oh,
on YouTube that sort of, I mean, I'm sure you have things on YouTube about the app, but I'm curious to what extent you've networked with the YouTube community there.
well, I personally live with Megan Elizabeth, who's been on YouTube for
Oh, I didn't know you
years.
lived with her. I actually have an
Yeah,
interview scheduled with her next month.
nice. I think I mentioned that to her today, and she did say something about that.
It's a small
So
world.
it's a very small world, and we've done quite a few videos actually with just a group of friends, all vegans, just like either taste test videos with weird, wacky foods.
Oh yeah, I saw the one where you. Yeah, I've seen some pretty funny ones. I was
Yeah.
I was just curious if you've found a way to. I mean, this is something that I struggle with, Drew. So maybe you can. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. A way to promote the thing that you're building, right,
Uh huh.
in a way that feels in the flow
Okay.
and
Gotcha.
and not self promotiony. Does that make sense?
Hmm. Yeah.
To make something that's a win win win. I'm curious how you approach that.
The thing that everybody says is just create the value, like create value. So whatever you're wanting to promote,
Hmm.
maybe create something around it that has value to a wider audience of people and it can bring people in. And I guess I'll use a specific example
Please.
is everybody, not everybody, but a lot of people on social media, they like watching these little 30-second ads that people create with cool music and there's like little editing going on and you've got like this text popping up on the screen that says, veganism improved by 1,000% in 2017, and then maybe the next slide will have a funny picture, somebody eating a carrot or something, and then you've got another piece of text and then another picture, and you've kind of got this little flow going. So and then maybe at the very end of that, I'll run like a HunnyBee picture. bring vegans together. It's beautiful, 2018, something like that. But
Oh, I
the
see.
first 28 seconds of that is just general information that people could use or may enjoy seeing. And then, bam, what do you know? You've got an ad for what you're trying to promote in the end, anyways. So, like, creating value that people would generally want to see, and then your name is attached to it. So, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes a
And
lot
then,
of
of course,
sense.
it,
That's
it
that's a
takes some
very
creativity to do that. But
absolutely.
yeah, so I think what you're asking me is if I network with these people and do some like funny sketches and stuff like that, and then maybe plug my own business or something
I
within
guess
it.
I'm just curious. I guess I'm like brainstorming. I'm just curious
Mm.
if you've tried anything like that and and how you approach it.
Yeah, so one of my friends, Christine Salas, she's a fitness vegan YouTuber.
Hmm.
I didn't even ask her to do this, but it's just kind of like comes with meeting more people and having a positive impact on people that kind of want to help you out. So
Hmm.
she was talking about a Tinder date in one of her videos, which was the value.
Hmm.
And just for fun, she plugged HunnyBee in the very beginning of that video. So she's basically saying, hey, I went on this terrible date on this online dating app, Tinder, which
I'm
is
familiar
neither
with
here nor
it.
there. Yeah. So, a lot of people are familiar with that. So they tune in, ooh, horrible Tinder date. It's got to be juicy. So and of course, it was a great story, but they tuned in for that. And then she gave them the old sleight of hand. Hey, by the way, I've got a buddy who's created this amazing vegan and vegetarian dating app right here. Boom. Maybe there's less weirdness going on this app than there is on Tinder,
See,
or
that's what I'm
whatever.
talking about. That's totally organic and
Yes.
feels right. Can you
Yep.
shoot me a link to that? I'd love to put that in the show notes for everyone
Yes.
listening. That sounds
Definitely.
awesome. Well, we can start to wrap it up. Unless there's something else you want to talk about, is there anything that you would like to specifically point people to before we say aloha?
I would like people to go check out my recent partnership with that I've made for HunnyBee with Elise of Raw Alignment. So
Oh,
she is actually one of the biggest vegan YouTubers and social media people in the world at this point.
I
Um,
noticed. I noticed. It's amazing the reach that she's having.
she's a superstar. I mean, she's only going to get bigger. There's just something, really special about what she has going on, and people are resonating with it. A lot of vegans are resonating with it.
Definitely, definitely.
And yeah, so she's going to be helping me with a lot of the social media stuff and just the general promotion. I think she's just a perfect ambassador for the app for a lot of reasons, but especially like her relationship that she has with her partner Addison. It's the type of culture and type of people that I want to attract to the app,
Mm-hmm.
and
Hmm.
it's the app is having that effect. The vibe of the people is sort of like the mainstream in a good way. I use that word in a good way. The mainstream people who are vegan also. It's not maybe their whole life, or you don't have to be anything specific. You don't have to be an activist to be on this app or anything like that. But it's bringing in the mainstream people out there in the public that want to find a vegan or vegetarian partner. And she's also just one of the people who was strongly supportive and enthusiastic right from the get go. As soon as I started telling people about it, she wanted to get involved like right away, and I said, "Hang on, hang on." So finally, we've made it official, and she is on board with this thing. And I just think that it's going to be huge for the app moving forward. And to check out her stuff too, Raw Alignment on Instagram or YouTube.
I follow her. She's an inspiration, definitely. She's so
Yep.
positive too. That's one of the things I love about her is she's so positive and she knows that what you focus on gets bigger. You know.
Yes. And just like I said about coming to Hawaii to see if people are the real deal, to see who's really doing it,
Hmm.
she is the real deal. Like she really practices what she preaches in her videos,
Hmm.
and just another level of impressiveness that she adds.
Well, I can tell even from 3,000 miles away, literally. I can tell.
Hmm.
This is a real deal. So, what is the form that takes on? Is she? I'm curious. Like, how is it that going to be handled?
She is actually hands on with the social media, the Instagram account at this point.
Oh, so
And
she's helping you manage the HunnyBee Instagram account.
correct, yeah. So we've got
Oh,
the at date
cool.
honeybee Instagram account. So
Everybody should
um,
follow that.
for sure. And she is also directly promoting it from her own platforms, and kind of she's segueing her audience now into I'm a ambassador for this thing and I'm working on this thing. So rather than her saying like, getting paid by Pepsi or whatever to put a Pepsi in her stories and say, "Hey,
Right.
this is the best drink in the world."
This is the
Rather than
best
doing
sugar
that.
water that humankind has ever made.
Yeah, it's
Drink
more
this
of an
sugar
organic
water.
thing. Yep. And that's the thing I kind of mentioned earlier is be willing to share a valuable piece of what you got with the people you want to help you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you are creating a business and you want those partnerships to last a long time, you have to incentivize people. You have to make it worth their time as you'd want to be
Mm-hmm.
rewarded.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the thing is I want to create like long lasting partnerships with the people who get involved in this, and she's the first of that wave that's coming in. So
You've definitely picked a great ambassador in terms of vegan people you could pick. I mean,
thank you.
I'm curious. I'm curious though. So she's giving you a lot of exposure. What does she get out of it, if I can ask?
I guess those talks are confidential at this point, but
Oh,
she
I'll cut
is
this all out. I'm sorry.
a she is what I will call a co-founder of the company.
I see. I
So
see.
she is going to be involved on the highest levels of everything as far as ownership goes and everything like that. So she will have she'll be in it for the long haul. Let's just say that.
Well, that sounds very exciting. I mean, I'm sure it's only going to continue to grow and grow and grow.
Yeah. Thank you. Sure, your podcast is going to grow as well.
Oh, thank you.
I like your style. I like your interview style. I think it's really good.
I appreciate that, Drew. It's something that I enjoy. I don't expect to make a living off of podcasting, but I really enjoy it, and I mostly just love the social aspect to it. I
Mhm.
think that's something that we miss on social media is the depth. It's hard to get the same level of depth.
Mhm.
Some of the peak experiences of my life, it sounds so nerdy to say, have been like long, emotionally intimate conversations. These conversations
Yeah.
that, I mean, like, when you have these conversations that are, it's like a 5 hour long conversation that
Yeah.
changes your perspective on life. And there can be so much spiritual growth in that moment.
Mhm.
And I think that's something that you can't really do. You really can't even do it on YouTube, where you can have, I don't know, like hour-long videos up on YouTube now. It's
Mhm.
it's good, but there's something, and I'm biased, but there's something very intimate about a podcast that's right in there, right in their
Mhm.
ears. And I'm so thankful that people listen and that they
Mhm.
get value out of this. And I'm thankful for you for joining me today. And I just feel like there's so much that you can do in audio and long form audio that you can't really do on Instagram. Instagram is really great for sharing these glimpses and getting people thinking about things. But the stories are only 15 seconds long. It's
Mhm.
it's different. I think it's just a different thing. So
I totally agree with that. Definitely.
I think unless there's anything else that you'd like to talk about, I don't want to keep you too long. I have a reputation of interviewing people longer than we ever planned because we just get in the flow. I don't even want to tell you. Oh
That's
man,
good.
yeah.
No, I'm good. I think that we covered a lot, and I'm very happy with what we've talked about so far.
Everybody should go to honeybeedating.com or just open the app store and look up HunnyBee, HUNNYBE. It's a gorgeous app, and you'll probably find some pretty awesome people on there if you're vegetarian or vegan. And it's rapidly growing. So you want to get in. It's like Bitcoin but real. You want to get in
Yes.
now.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, and I think that's a good joke. And I gotta say, this is just a small promotion here on the app.
Go
Is
ahead.
that I gotta say that we have a very attractive client base. As far as, I mean, the people that are signing onto this thing, it is the clientele, the exact clientele that I was hoping that it would
Mm-hmm.
attract. The aesthetic
Mm-hmm.
that Honeybee gives off is bringing in that aesthetic of people, and I think that's okay, and I think that's important.
Well, I can definitely tell. Yeah, people are actually using cameras that were made in the last 10 years.
Yes,
That
sir.
that is good. And yeah, I can. Yeah, these are really cool people, even around me in the middle of Wisconsin. So,
That's great to hear.
most likely the people who are listening to this have many, many, many more people who will show up around their area.
And if
Well,
you're willing to relocate, then you can find people across the world because there is an unlimited function of it where you can see people as it doesn't matter how far they are.
and if you go to the Big Island, your head will explode. Well, I think that's a good place to leave it off. Thank you so much, Drew, for joining me today and sharing this time. This has been a lot of fun. I don't think people know this was the most spontaneous interview that I've ever set up in my life. I basically was like, oh, I've got some time today, and I was sort of reaching out to you, and we just agreed to this like a few hours ago.
Yeah, it's like it's the best to do things when it's fresh and you can have that energy for it. So that's what I was looking forward to.
Yeah, it went great. It's been so much fun, and I love the spontaneity to it too.
For sure.
Okay, well, have a great day, and yeah, thanks for joining me.
Thanks,
Aloha.
Sam. Aloha.
Wow, I am so thankful for everything we were able to cover in that interview. I had such a blast. I learned so much. Thank you so much, Drew, once again for joining me on that. Before I go, I want to remind you that you can totally subscribe to the show. It'll be automatically delivered to your iPod or your iPhone, your iPad, or your Android, or your whatever. But the easiest way I found to subscribe to it is just to go to iTunes and look it up. It's really easy to find the iTunes store under the podcast section. That's just ARAVINDA show. It's really easy to find. If you like Instagram, and that's kind of where the party's happening, in my opinion, I'm Hello Crusoe on there. I'm HELLOCRUSOE, Hello Crusoe, and I post all kinds of yummy food and adventures and stuff. But I also post new interviews when they come out, little samples of them. And that's another way to make sure you don't miss any of the interviews that are coming up. Also, check out Drew on there. He's really cool on there too. DREWMORG is his username, Drew Morg. But his apps page is really what you want to check out. That's Date HunnyBee, DATEHUNNYBEE. And he's posting these really great vegan couple stories and kind of showing them off, and just the results of his app is really cool to see. You can also check him out at honeybeedating.com. You can get the app for free, HUNNYBEEDATING.com. Of course, all this will be in the show notes for this episode. That's over at myth.li, myth.li. You can go there, click on our Avinda show. It's really easy to find. You can find the show notes and all the great interviews, as well as free samples of my books, including my upcoming book, 10,000 Hours in Paradise. It's a true story about my life-changing adventures on Hawaii. It's what I learned about community, sustainability, healing the planet. I'm so excited for it to come out. Anyway, feel free to follow me at Hello Crusoe on Instagram to stay in the loop about upcoming interviews. I have so many great entrepreneurs coming up, and I can't wait to share them with you. Once again, I'm Andrew Crusoe. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time. Aloha.